So now let's talk a little bit about the mic preamps that we're going to use today. We have enough outboard mic preamps today where we actually don't have to use the console preamps at all. Although the console preamps are very good on this console, but Al likes to have his flavors, so we use these. This is a rack of old Neve preamps. This is actually the studio's preamps. We're going to put some drums in here, so we've got the kick, the 2 snares, and the overheads. Phantom power is sent from here. As well as the polarity reversal on the bottom snare. These do have very nice EQs in them. It's an Al Schmidt session, so we probably won't use any EQ at all. I haven't seen him turn these EQs in years. This is another set of the studio's Neve preamps. These are the newer 1081R preamps. They actually connect to the 88R console. If we need to, we can take this rack out to the floor and actually use it remotely from the console. And here we're going to have the hi-hat, the 3 tom mics, the Rhodes, and if we have a bass DI, we'll do that. The patching, you can see our patch cables here, comes right off the patch bay and in and out back into the patch bay. This rack, these are Al's mic preamps, his personal mic preamps. He's collected these over the years. We've got another set of Neve 1081s that actually we're not using today. We've got these Studer D19 series preamps. He's had these forever, as long as I can remember. They have a great feature where you can put the tube in or take it out, and you can adjust the drive into the tube. Al doesn't use a lot of drive into the tube, but he does like the warmth that the tube gives him. So we're going to use a pair of these on the bass, the low and high mics on the bass, and we're going to use them for the room mics also. Here we have 4 Great River mic preamps. These are very characteristic of a Neve. He's had these for a few years now. We're going to use these on the trombones. These preamps down here are special preamps, a company called Upstate Audio, and these were actually the prototype mic preamps that he sent to Al to try out, and Al loved them so much he just never gave them back to him, and now they're part of the rack. And then he came up with a second model, and he sent those to us to try out, and Al loved those so much also that he kept those too, so I'm sure he paid for them. But these are now part of the rack, and unfortunately I don't think you can buy these. We love them. They're nice and clean, but they still have a lot of punch to them also. They're very versatile. You have a lot of gain. You can pop gain in and out. Again, a polarity and phantom power. Today we're using them on the 5 saxophones, and we're using them on the piano also. Down here we have Mastering Lab tube mic preamps. These are actually the only tube mic preamps that we're using today. These were made by Doug Sachs a while back. Al's had these forever. He's had these longer than I've known Al. And today we're using these on the 4 trumpets. Down here at the bottom we just have the power supplies for the Upstate Audio mic preamps. So pretty much the only other piece of outboard other than preamps that we'll use today is the Summit TLA 100s that we'll use on the bass. I'll patch these on the insert of the channel path on the console. So we'll actually be recording through these. They're a tube compressor. You'll watch, as we get into the session, what you'll watch Al do is there's a switch to meter the output and the gain reduction. So what he'll do is he'll flip to the output and he'll watch the VU meter and make sure the bass, he'll make sure it's not getting into the red, nice and conservative, and then he'll flip back over to gain reduction and he'll dial in the gain reduction. I would probably bet that you won't see more than a dB or so of gain reduction. He doesn't really use these for compression. He uses them more for the sound of them. And other than that, we probably won't use any EQ or any compressors on anything today. We usually don't. The other thing, here at Capitol, we have our handy-dandy little talkback boxes. These were actually built by one of our techs here, and we can program the buttons. So what I'll be able to do is give this to anybody in the control room here that needs to talk to the band. So we can have a button that activates the talkback on the console, and I can make one button go straight to the conductor and the other button go straight to the band, or another button that goes to the speakers out in the studio. It's kind of a useful little toy to have. So here we are at our console. Here at Capitol, we're lucky enough to own 4 large format Neve consoles. This is our newest one. This is an 88 RS. Fantastic console. We've had it about 7 years now. It's an RS because it's got the scoring panel for when we're mixing films. We're not going to use any of this stuff today. We're going to keep it as simple as we possibly can. Our basic signal flow today. Obviously, we have musicians on the floor playing into microphones. The microphones will come in through our patch bay. They'll hit the mic preamps that we've designated to use. Every microphone will come back to the line-in patch on this console into the channel path. This is an inline console, meaning we have a channel path and we have a monitor path all within one module. Today we're going to keep our channel path, so our microphones will come in on our large faders, directly from the preamps, directly to the large fader. It's also going through a gate and a compressor and an EQ on the path. We're actually going to take that stuff out of the path today because Al won't use any of that. So from the fader, we go out directly out one-to-one to our Pro Tools session. So every microphone that comes in has a designated channel in Pro Tools, designated channel on the console. Actually, 2 designated channels, one for the input, one for the return. The reason we always put the microphones on the large faders for Al is so that he can ride gain to tape. Obviously, we're not going to tape, we're going to Pro Tools, but we still call it tape because it's easier. So if he pushes something up, it's getting louder in the Pro Tools. If he pulls it down, it's getting softer in the Pro Tools. He'll learn the song as it goes down, and he'll take cues from me. If trumpets are going into mutes or there's a solo coming up, he'll lean over and ride that solo up like you would traditionally in a mix, only we do it here, and that way we don't have to do it in the mix, and it just plays back that way. He's mixing as he goes. It makes playbacks a lot easier, it makes our rough mixes a lot better, it makes mixing way easier. So the first thing Al will do when he comes in, I will have everything patched on the console and labeled up. Al likes to make his own groups. So these center faders, we have one is the stereo bus master, so the master output of the console. And the other ones we're going to use as basically VCA groups, what would be VCA groups in Pro Tools or a DAW. Here they literally just physically control the faders over here. So he's got them set up for the bass, the drums, the keyboards, the rooms, the saxes, the bones, and the trumpets. And again, these are linked to the large faders, which means they're all on the inputs. So if we get to a part in the chart and the trumpets are going into mutes, you'll hear me yell, Al, the trumpets are going into mutes in one bar. And when that bar comes up, he'll simply lean over, push up the trumpet group here. All 4 trumpet mics are moving. And when they come out of mutes, he'll push them back down to where he had them. One thing to pay attention to is Al, he's very big on watching meters. So he's always watching the meters. And here he's looking at VU meters, not peak meters. I'll be looking at peak meters in Pro Tools, and if I have a peak going over, I'll let him know and he'll adjust. But he's always looking at VU meters here on each channel. And he's looking at the return from tape on that channel. The other thing to pay attention to is he's constantly watching his stereo bus meters, and these are the VU meters, the old traditional this way VU meters, as we call them. And he's always watching that on his mix and making sure he's not getting too hot into the red there. He'll try to hover around 0 as much as he possibly can. So now I'm going to walk you through the signal flow for our bass. We have the M149s out in the booth. He's got 2 of them set up, one near the F-hole, one up a little bit higher. Those are tube microphones, so what we do is we come out of the power supply into the panel on the wall. Panel on the wall comes through the spaghetti of cables we have in the walls here at Capitol. It comes up on our patch bay behind me. I have an input sheet that the setup guys leave me, so I know what input it's coming to me on. I then take patch cable, I patch out of that input out on the floor, and I'm patching into Al's Studer D19 mic preamps, which are in his rack. His rack is actually connected to our patch bay through an Elco connector. That way I don't have to run physical cables to the back of his rack. They're run permanently, and I have everything on our patch bay. So from the Studer D19 preamps, the line output of those preamps, the signal comes into the Neve console, and I patch into the line input of the Neve console. So we are actually going through the line amps on the console. This is an inline console, so each channel has an input section and a monitor section. After the input stage here, we hit the line amps. It comes directly to the fader. The large fader in this case. This is a very flexible console, so we can make this console do whatever we want. We could swap them around, but we're going to keep everything on the big faders today, the microphones. So our 2 bass mics come up here. Al adjusts his level at the mic preamp, and then it hits the faders here. But before it hits the faders here, this is the one instance where we're actually using some compressors. So there's an insert point on this console. Right now we're using it post EQ. Although that's pretty irrelevant because Al doesn't use EQs and he won't today. So before we hit our faders here, we're actually going to hit the Summit TLA 100s that we talked about. He's going to do his little bit of compression. Then it comes to the faders. Output of the faders. The faders, he'll ride his gain here, set the level, goes to the direct outputs of the console. And the direct outputs of this console feed directly into the Pro Tools rig. Today we're not summing anything, so every microphone gets its own channel on the console and it gets its own channel in Pro Tools. Pro Tools is just a tape machine for us. We're not doing any kind of plugins over there. We're not doing any kind of gain over there. Nothing. It's literally coming into Pro Tools, it's being recorded, and Pro Tools is spitting it back out. The same input that we use in Pro Tools, it's spitting back out the same output. So the output of Pro Tools then comes back into the monitor section of this console, in this case, which is the small fader. So if you see Al moving the large faders, he's adjusting the gain going into the Pro Tools. If you see him adjusting the small faders, he's adjusting the gain coming out of the Pro Tools. What you'll notice, and what we notice on a lot of Al's records, is we just line up the monitor faders and they pretty much just stay there the whole day. When we're mixing, or if we have to do an overdub or something like that, when we come back a couple days later, we can just take the monitor faders and line them up at 0, and basically our record comes back to us there. This process will be repeated all the way down the console for every individual microphone and every group of microphones. So the same thing will happen for the kick, for the snare, the toms, the overheads, the piano, the Rhodes. The only one difference with the Rhodes is getting a direct. It doesn't have a microphone. It's got a pair of direct boxes. Till we get down here to our horns, our room mics, our saxophones, our trombones, and our trumpets. They're all treated the same way. Out of the mic preamps, into the channel, out of the channel into the Pro Tools, back out of the Pro Tools to the monitor section of the console.